Children can take hormone blockers to prevent the onset of puberty, to give them more time to make a decision about the gender they want to be. But should teenagers be allowed to transition while they are still so young? Well, joining me now to discuss that are Jacob Saber-Dutton, who runs the support group Trans for Me in Nottingham, and Andrew Marsh of Christian Concern. Sky's social affairs editor, Afua Hirsch, who spoke to those teenagers, also joins us from central London. Thanks to all of you this morning. But just before we get started, though, a reminder, you can join the debate too. Tweet us at Sky News, including the hashtag Sky Debate. Text on 84501 or email news@sky.com. Let us know what you think or if there's any points you want to put to our guests, and we'll read some of your comments out as we go along. Well, thank you to the three of you for joining us this morning. Afu, if I could just go firstly to you, can you just tell us a little bit about your findings in this investigation?
Yeah, absolutely. We looked into the number of both adults and children who are receiving treatment for gender dysphoria on the NHS, and we found that in the relatively emerging field of treating children, there'd been a really significant increase. So in 2010, 2011, there were 139 children who were referred to the Tavistock Clinic, which is currently the only clinic in the UK that treats children with gender dysphoria. And in 2014-15, there was 697 children. So that's an increase of around 400%. And of course, for these children, like the ones you saw in my package just there, they see it as a race against the clock, because if they're able to get in there to have medical treatment before they fully go through puberty, they can take these things that are known as hormone blockers, which delay the signs of puberty and mean that if they do later want to fully transition into the opposite gender, it means that there's a lot less to go through. So you saw Alex there, whose voice never broke. It meant that she won't have to go through what some older transgender women go through, of worrying about having a very deep masculine voice. Those kinds of things really important to the young people. And then, of course, if they do reach adulthood and still want to transition, then they might be looking for full gender reassignment surgery on the NHS. And we found that that's sharply increased as well. So in 2002, 2003, there were 98 gender reassignment procedures in England on the NHS. In 2013 to 14, that was 171. And figures we just obtained from NHS England show that in the last year, there were 330 procedures. So you can see a really significant increase in those as well. Some people question whether it's right for the NHS to carry out those procedures, and the evidence is mixed. There are studies that show that if you're not able to obtain that gender reassignment surgery, you're at high risk of suicide and other mental health problems. On the other hand, some people say that there isn't enough evidence to know whether it's safe to treat people as young as some of the children you saw in that story, because there aren't those very, very long-term studies as to what happens to them over the course of their life if they do transition. So the evidence is contested, but as you can see, the number of people who are receiving this treatment is definitely on the rise.
OK, Afua, thank you. Jacob Saber-Dutton, if I could just ask you, I mean, is it as simple as saying it is a race against the clock for many of these teenagers who were born one way, but as they get older and go into their teenage years, they feel very different?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if anyone struggles with hormones and their puberty, but when you go through the wrong puberty, it's just distressing. And if you can catch it before you start and grow all the wrong things and finish puberty, then it's definitely worthwhile.
Andrew Marsh, if I can just get your thoughts. I mean, what Jacob is saying, that the right thing to do is get it before puberty and stop this young person as they're getting older, going through their teenage years and going into adulthood, going through all the emotional suffering that they will inevitably go through if they're born one way, but inside that they feel very different.
Well, I think it is extraordinary that this is even being considered, and the vast majority of people who are watching this programme, I think, will find it remarkable that it is being proposed, in some instances being carried out, that it's even being discussed. But we must discuss it and challenge it, because what's at stake here is not some academic experiment, but actually something that affects real children and real lives.
Why is it extraordinary, given the fact that this is how a person, an individual, a boy or girl feels, and ultimately it's about their well-being?
Well, look, in this country, We don't allow children to start to drive until they're 17. You can't vote until you're 18. Are we really saying that we are going to allow, even encourage children, perhaps as young as 10, but even 12 or 14, to embark on some strong medication that disrupts the natural process of puberty and development, and embark on a journey that has life-changing significance? I mean, who of us, when we were 10 or 12 or 14, would now want to be held to all the decisions that we made then, let alone one of this magnitude in terms of the direction it sets? And the reality here is that it won't be children who are making these decisions at that age. It will be adults shaping those decisions. And I'm afraid to say that this is actually the trumping of the ideology of adults over the innocence and the well-being of children.
Jacob, is it as simple as that? I mean, in this country, we're not allowed to vote until we're 18 years old. So to say to a child that you can determine your future, you know, when you're 14, 15, 16, or even younger, surely that can't be the way forward. Surely that can't be the necessary thing to do.
Voting and driving are completely different to being trans, and the way you feel inside. Like, I don't even know why that was even compared to being trans, because that's just ridiculous. But yeah, it's literally the well-being, the emotional distress of the young person, and how deeply they feel. And if these professionals didn't know what they were talking about, they wouldn't be in this job, and they wouldn't be prescribing the hormone blockers that are reversible. So it's not the end of the world if this young person does change their mind. But it's going to be detrimental, because would you rather have a young person killing themselves by the time they're 16, or someone that's going to be happy in their life?
That's the thing, isn't it? If somebody feels one way and there is no treatment for them, Andrew Marsh, the evidence that is around suggests that they are likely to do things like self-harm, to fall into states of depression. That's not going to benefit the child. That's not going to benefit the parents either.
It's very misleading and unfair to suggest that those are outcomes of blocking this kind of approach. Actually, those are underlying issues that need to be addressed, and people in that situation do need help and appropriate counselling, etc., to help with those underlying issues. In fact, research suggests that in the long term, those conditions of perhaps likelihood to commit suicide, but certainly depression actually persist and can often develop more fundamentally after a long time after reassignment surgery. So the challenge here is we need to engage with the underlying issues. The fundamental question here is where there is a discrepancy in someone's mind with about their identity, with the physical reality of their body. What do you do about that? Do you say, well, the only thing to do is to reorder the body, the physical reality of the body, and to put it starkly, to butcher the body, to bring it in line with the perception in the mind? Or do you address the perception in the mind and try to help someone recognise and celebrate their identity? If we compare this with the issue of anorexia, for example, someone who is convinced that they are overweight when in fact they're dangerously underweight, we don't start saying the solution to that is to start changing the body, physical surgery or even medication to change the body. What we do is address the psychological and mental issues with compassion and with care. That is the truly compassionate thing to do.
Andrew. Jacob, I see you furiously shaking your head. Can I just get your thoughts on what you've just heard?
The words butchering the body is just absolutely just ridiculous. Like, I've had surgery, I've had my top surgery to get rid of my breast, and I don't see that as butchering. I see that as being more comfortable in my body. And if somebody wants surgery, bottom or top surgery, then let them do it. And if they want hormones, let them be happier in life and happier in their future to be who they want to be, then go for it. Yeah, like, talk about their mental health and their distresses and everything that comes with it, but being trans and wanting to live in your body that you feel comfortable can all kind of pop into the mental health stuff. But once you do align your body with your gender identity, there's a lot more. It can really change your outlook on life. And just to say that butchering your body is literally just, I can't really comprehend that comment.
Okay, Jacob Sabo Dutton, Andrew Marsh and Athol Hirscher, many thanks to the three of you for joining us this morning.